Welcome to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. Be sure to stay tuned to the end of the show to hear how you can get a copy of this program and other helpful documents. And now it's time for Kerry McCoy to get up in your business.
Hello, you're listening to KABF in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm Kerry McCoy, and it's time for me to get all up in your business. For the next hour, my guest and I will be having a conversation of curiosity and storytelling. We will be answering questions via phone and email and giving advice to small business owners and to people who dream of owning a small business. You may be asking yourself right now, what makes this lady qualified to do this? And I'll tell you, experience. So in a minute, you can email or call and ask me anything or my guest. My experience is deep and wide, and my advice is free. 40 years ago, with just $400, I started Arkansas Flag and Banner. Since then, it's morphed into simply flagandbanner.com, with sales nearing $4 million. That's worth saying again. I started Arkansas Flag and Banner with just $400, and today we have sales nearing $4 million. I started by selling flags door to door, then went telemarketing, next mail order and catalog sales, and today we rely heavily on the internet. In addition, over the last 40 years, I've navigated Flag and Banner through 2 recessions and 2 wars. When people find out I'm that woman who owns Arkansas Flag and Banner, they often say, "Oh, I've heard about you," and begin asking me business advice. I amaze even myself with all the knowledge I've gained. If you call me for advice, or my guest, you will not be given textbook answers or theory, but you will be given candid advice from real-world experience. So be prepared for the truth. It's not always easy to hear. For instance, you may not want to hear this. In business, there are very few overnight successes. Starting and owning a business takes persistence, perseverance, and patience. When I started Arkansas Flag and Banner, I supplemented my income by waitressing, all while I peddled my flags door to door. After 9 years, did you hear me? 9 years of working a part-time job, the company began to grow and solely support me. My first hire was a bookkeeper. My first expansion was to begin the manufacturing of custom flags. The next decade ushered in Desert Storm war. Flags were scarce, so a screen printing department was hurriedly built to meet the consumer's demands. In addition to sales and manufacturing, Flag and Banner now has a purchasing department, a shipping department, a technology department, marketing department, call center, and retail store. And I spearheaded each of these developments. My experience is deep and wide, and my advice is free. I hope you'll take advantage of this unique opportunity by calling or emailing me on today's show. Before we start taking calls and talking to our guest, I want to introduce the people at the table. We have Tim Bowen, our technician, who will be taking your calls and pushing the button. Say hello, Tim.
Hello, Tim.
My guest today is the infamous Jack Sundell, owner and founder of the very celebrated Root Café in downtown Little Rock, Arkansas. Jack's background was not grounded in restaurant experiences, as you might think, but rather in service work. While working for the Peace Corp in Morocco, he fell in love with their cafes and saw how they were an integral part of the Moroccans' social life. Back in the States, he volunteered for Heifer Ranch in Perryville, Arkansas. There he learned the practice of farm-to-table eating and living. These 2 very different worlds collided in an idea and became Jack's passion that we know today as the Root Café, with a sign on the wall that says, "Building Community Through Local Food." Welcome to the table, Jack Sundell.
Thanks for having me, Kerry.
You're welcome. What a ride your 20s must have been. It says you bounced around. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I bounced around. It was like Michael Jordan was dribbling me.
Well, today I want to talk about the Peace Corp, the Heifer Ranch, the Root Café, nepotism, because you work with your family. Mm-hmm. But before we get on every one of those, I saw you went to Hendrix College.
That's right. Yeah, I went to Hendrix, and gosh, what a great school. I was from a small town in Arkansas, Monticello, and I went to governor's school in 11th grade, and just had this wonderful experience where I met people like me, sort of forward-thinking for the first time, and found that there were other people my age who had interests besides football and cheerleading. And so I went back to Hendrix after I graduated, and, such an incredible school. It gave me a great education, a great foundation in learning how to learn, and then also the opportunity to study abroad, which I did. I studied in France for a year, And then after I got back from there, I finished at Hendricks and moved to New York City. I had a grandfather living there and lived in New York for 2 years. Went first to an English teaching school. The goal was to become an English teacher, and then once I finished that program, I realized I wouldn't make enough money to support myself in New York by teaching English, or at least the way I was looking at it at the time. So I went to bartending school, and
they make money.
They do, but I wasn't able to get a job as a bartender.
What?
Well, it's a tough market up there, and there are a lot of bartenders looking for work, so there's a lot of competition. I didn't have any experience in bartending, but I got a job as a waiter at a restaurant and worked there for about a year and a half. And
so you do have a little waiter experience, a little restaurant experience.
Oh yeah, I've got a decent amount of restaurant experience. I worked at Dixie Cafe in Conway for about 9 days. I still hold the record for the most number of dropped drink glasses at one time.
So you couldn't get a bartending job, which I've never heard of anybody not being able to get a bartending job, but okay. And I guess there's a lot of actors wanting bartender jobs.
Right, and if you've got experience, I think it's a lot easier. And maybe I was looking in the wrong places, but I was looking for the kind of bartending job I would want to have, and I guess that's the kind of bartending jobs that everyone would want to have.
So you came back to Little Rock? Or you joined the Peace Corp then?
After that, I moved to Michigan, and I lived in Michigan for a year. Outside of Traverse City, there is a small liberal arts boarding high school called Interlochen.
Oh, I know Interlochen.
Do you know Interlochen?
I visited. Gray thought about going there, one of my sons.
Oh,
it is
okay.
a very interesting place.
Beautiful, yeah. They have an enormous summer camp, and I had worked there as a cabin counselor a couple of summers during college. And then after Hendricks and after New York City, I decided to be a hall counselor there during the school year. So it was kind of my place.
Do you play music?
Well, I do. Yeah, I play guitar and harmonica, sing.
Interlochen is a very musical school, isn't it?
It is. I mean, they don't do folk music, but they have classical music, jazz. They have creative writing, theater, ballet. So it's a great, wonderful place.
So you got a summer job there?
Well, summer job and then a full school year job as well as a hall counselor, because it's a boarding school.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a great place to kind of recover from New York City, out in the woods for a year.
Yeah.
3 feet in snow.
And away from all that bars and alcohol and kind of regroup.
That's right. They don't have bars there. They have taverns.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. Yeah, rural Michigan.
So how long did you stay there? A year and a half, you said?
There for one school year.
You're probably 26-ish now?
Gosh, who knows? I guess I was around probably 25, I think, when I joined the Peace Corps. I think I was about to turn 25.
What was the deciding factor that made you decide you want to join the Peace Corps?
I think both my parents were in the Peace Corps.
Oh.
They actually met in the Peace Corps. They were both volunteers in Tunisia in the early 60s. And the way my dad tells it, they met on a camel ride. And I don't know if that's true or not.
That's
but
so
that's what he
romantic,
says,
though.
isn't it?
I
Yeah.
love it.
And so anyway, I had grown up with that, that legacy in the family. And I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I always kind of thought when I got out of college at some point, I would like to do the Peace Corps. And it's an incredible experience. I was in Morocco for 2 years, and it's a great way to see another country, to learn a foreign language.
They speak Spanish?
No, they speak Arabic there.
That's not even the same characters we have. How do you even learn a language like that?
Well, we didn't do as much reading and writing, but we learned they have a dialect of Arabic called Darija. I didn't know this before I went, but every country in the Arab world and North Africa has its own spoken dialect of Arabic. And so if you go to Morocco, you'll hear a different language than you hear in Tunisia or Egypt or Saudi Arabia. And what connects all of them is that the spoken, the written language is classical Arabic. So it's the Arabic, the old Arabic of the Quran. But in every country, the spoken language has evolved while the written language has been kept the same as it
like
was
the North
1,000
and the
years
South.
ago.
They don't say y'all up there.
Oh, it's a lot more different than that, though. And
They
in
don't
some
say
cases,
fixin'. They're not fixing to do anything.
In some cases, the different Arabic dialects are not even mutually comprehensible. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, they're quite different from each other.
So you went to the Peace Corps because it's kind of in the family DNA. So your family has a history of service. And
You could say that, yeah.
And I think restaurants are very service-oriented, too.
Oh, they're completely service-oriented.
And you went to Hendrix, and what did you major in there?
I majored in international relations and global studies.
Well, that worked out really well for you, didn't it?
It did. Well, the thing is that when I went there, I graduated in 2000, and that was still considered an interdisciplinary major. They hadn't really created an international relations degree, so it was...
They're always slow. Colleges are a little behind on where we should be sometimes, I think. You know, you're like, hey, we need to learn computers now, guys.
Well, the great thing about Hendrix is that if you wanted to do something like that, you could create your own major, and then you just had to get it approved, even if it wasn't one they already offered.
That is very liberal artsy.
It is, yeah. And so this was really the epitome of a liberal arts degree because I got to take 12 classes from like 12 different disciplines. You know, it was like
When you went,
Buddhism and gender and family and French language and just all kinds. It's kind of like an undecided major.
yeah, when you went to Governor School, it's at Hendrix. If our listeners didn't know, that's how you ended up at Hendrix.
That's right.
Governor School is at Hendrix. But you kind of have to pick I wouldn't say a degree, but you have to pick something you're interested in so you'll know which group to put you with. Like my son did music and the other son did arts. What did you do?
I did natural science.
Oh, you did science.
Mm-hmm. My dad is a botanist, and so that seemed like the natural path to go into.
I just want to tell everybody that's listening, you are a cool dude.
Well, thanks.
You are.
I have a blue mohawk also.
Do you really? No, you do not. I'm
Well,
looking for it.
No, I was thinking the radio listeners wouldn't know if I did or
Oh,
not.
I busted you out. I'm
come
sorry.
on, Kerry.
I'm sorry.
How am I supposed to be a cool dude without a blue mohawk?
Well, you are almost 40. You're not supposed to have a blue mohawk. They'll think it's just gray hair.
Well, I do have a diamond-studded leather jacket on.
Okay, right. All right. Oh, how did you come home? You came home from Morocco.
By airplane.
Thank you. And you ended up going to Heifer straight away, or you came back and lived with Mom in Monticello, floundered around?
Well, I came back and I went on a road trip with my brother. We went down to Austin, Texas, and came back through New Orleans after Katrina had happened.
Oh,
And,
wow.
Yeah, it was a real interesting road trip. But then I think we were on the road for about 3 weeks or a month maybe. And then during that time, I applied to go to the Heifer Ranch, and I ended up there really just about a month after I got back.
So how was Katrina down there when you just went down there to see what it looked like? What's a road trip with your brother?
Oh, it was so much fun. Yeah, a great way to travel.
And you get to do it while you're young and before you're tied down. That sounds like a great thing to do. So you come back, go straight to Perryville. You're living at the Heifer Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And animal science.
You know, I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. That was kind of my more professional idea. In the back of my mind, I really wanted to open a cafe, and I already had this in my mind. And I remember spending the last year of my time in the Peace Corps dreaming about this cafe and telling all the other Peace Corps volunteers that would listen to me about wanting to open a cafe when I got back to the U.S. But the sort of more realist side of me was planning to go back to school, get a degree in, zoology or animal science, and then go to veterinary school.
Oh.
And so that was the plan for a little while, but I got done at the Heifer Ranch, and I started to take a couple of classes at UALR. And,
What's got done at the Heifer Ranch mean?
Oh, finished volunteering there.
Oh, okay.
So I was there for a year and a half, and it was a lot of fun. I was in education, and then I was in the livestock program also. So got to, work with they have chickens, they have
Rabbits.
they have rabbits,
Goats. Lambing. The
That's
lambing.
right.
You were there through the lambing?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the
lambing
sweetest
ladies
thing.
came.
The lambing
They visited.
ladies.
We were visited by them, and we had sheep, and we had a herd of cows. I mean, so it was a really amazing working small farm, and a lot of what we were raising there on the ranch we ate in the cafeteria, and in the case of the chickens we actually processed them ourselves there on the ranch. And so it was really amazing to get that kind of
Hands-on.
Yeah, that hands-on education in livestock and animal husbandry. And then they also have a working organic garden there that supplies the CSA.
Oh, I didn't know
comes
that.
into Little Rock. So
I didn't know that.
It's about like an 80-member
you met
CSA.
I bet you met a lot of the people you work with today at the Root Café from there.
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's still farmers I met there that we still buy from today.
So I would have to tell you the story. Since you're from the Heifer, I went up there because my son volunteered there. One of my sons did one year, and I went up there to see him for lunch. And while we're going through the line and getting a little piece of meat, he went, "Oh, that's Betsy. We butchered her last week." I was just like, "Oh no!"
You're not supposed to name your animals.
I just couldn't stand it. But then they're really special when you know you're going to eat them later. I guess I don't know.
Well, that's true, and it's a really interesting thing. You know, there were, obviously a lot of open-minded people end up at the Heifer Ranch, but it was something that we talked a lot about, was that idea of humane treatment of animals, and the fact that you could know an animal and be around an animal, and in some cases even name an animal, knowing that it was going to be an animal that you ate later. But the fact that you knew that you were giving it a good life while it was alive, I think, maybe something that in our sort of industrial fast food system, a lot of people just don't want to think about it. And so, they don't want to think about where their meat comes from. They don't want to think about the fact that the burger on their plate was at one point a living animal.
I know.
But the fact that you don't think about that is what results in a system where animals are treated so poorly and crowded into, confinement operations. And so I think recognizing that and seeing that system in action is a really, really important thing, because once you realize that animal is a life form and it has feelings and, it wants to be happy and taken care of just like a pet dog does, well, then you're going to take a lot better care of that animal. It's going to live a much happier life. And, if it's going to end up on a plate, it's going to end up on a plate. But
in a very humane way.
But before it does, it's good for it to live the best
you
life it can.
You said that so perfectly.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
You act like you may have said that before.
I don't know. I just thinking out loud, Kerry.
It's good. I like it. So we want to talk a lot about starting the Root. That's what really everybody wants to hear about, because the Root is famous, and it has a beautiful concept of building a community through local foods. I love that. So now you've been thinking about cafes because you've seen it in Morocco and you see that it's the core of the social society there. You've fallen in love with these cafes. You come back, you learned farm to table. You've gotten to know all the people and the farmers that are local. And I just want to say to young people that you never know where life's going to lead you. And you are a perfect example. You didn't just say, one day I'm going to have the Root Cafe on Main Street. It was a series of events that led you to where you got to. And you just got up every morning, I would imagine, and put one foot in front of the other, and all of a sudden you ended up somewhere you didn't anticipate.
That's right, yeah.
So you've left there and you decided you're going to open this cafe, but you can't just open it right away. And this is when I met you. I think actually I may have met you when you were still at Heifer a little bit. So
That's
how
right.
did you start earning money to live your dream of opening a cafe? How did you start that?
Well, I started thinking about it, brainstorming the idea of the Root Cafe with a young lady who was out at the Heifer Ranch with me named Rebecca. And the two of us ended up in Little Rock after we were at the ranch and continued to kind of develop this idea. And while it was still in very, very early stages, I met Corey, who became my wife later, and she became a third partner in all of the brainstorming and development of the Root. And so the three of us worked together for about 3 years, and we did fundraisers, which you know about. The first one was at Doc's Pool Hall.
At Arkansas Flag and Banner.
At the Arkansas Flag and Banner.
That's when I met you.
That's right. A friend of ours, Nathaniel Wills, helped us put together this fundraiser. And
he is an organizing guru, isn't he?
Isn't he? Yeah, he just makes things happen.
And then he just goes away and you're left doing it. You know, he started the Dreamland Ballroom.
That's right, yeah.
He started that. He talked me into that, kept doing all these things, and now he never comes around. And I see him, and I go, Nathaniel, I'm up to my elbows in the Dreamland Ballroom, and I never see you anymore.
Well, now he just says, I'm a farmer. I don't have any time.
I know. I want him to come on the show sometime.
That's right. And he's a dad, too.
Yes, he is. So anyway, those guys, the three of you got together, brainstormed, and you probably already knew Nathaniel.
Yeah, we had met, actually before I even moved to Little Rock, I met him at Merlefest, a music festival in North Carolina. And so I already knew him.
In North Carolina?
Yeah.
Two Arkansans met in North Carolina.
Well, it happens.
Really?
At least it did one time.
Okay. Okay, y'all met down there and said, hey, I'm from Little Rock. He said, me too.
That's right, yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
Okay.
And so then we did those fundraisers. It was just like a keg party with a band, and friends would come, and we would ask for donations, and put a piece of paper out to build an email list. And
how many fundraisers did you have?
At Doc's, I think we did 3 or 4.
That's
I can't
what
remember,
I think,
but
too.
a few. We'd get a different band each time, or a couple of bands. And
Did you do any place else?
let's see, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think so. I think most of the events like that we did at Doc's Pool Hall. Eventually, we started renting the kitchen at
Yes.
Christ Episcopal Church at 6th and
Yes.
Scott Street.
Yeah.
So we did some other format fundraisers. We would do like a movie and a dinner night.
Did you get enough money at these fundraisers and at Christ Church? Did you make enough money to start a business, or did you have to go out and get a loan on top of that?
We ended up borrowing $10,000.
That's nothing.
It really, it wasn't much. But that was mainly for the Vent-A-Hood, to get a Vent-A-Hood installed. Not all of the fundraisers were that successful monetarily, but we did, if they didn't raise a lot of money, then we considered them friend raisers. And
That's right.
it was a way to build our email list, and it was a way to get the message out that we were working on opening a local foods cafe.
And you need sales, which is really what you were doing, is you were building your sales, your customer base. You need sales almost before you need the location. And most people put in a location, spend all this money, and then they go out and try to get sales. You reversed that. So you probably never went in debt, did you? Because you reversed that. You had
Right.
customers first.
Yeah.
That is very odd.
Well, looking back, it worked out great.
Yeah.
We didn't know that we were doing something smart, and I wish I could say that it was intentional, but we, I think, were just really averse to taking on debt. So we thought, why don't we do this slowly, and we'll spend time raising money. We'll spend time raising awareness of local foods in the Little Rock community, which was something that was already going on, but it was something that we could work with other organizations and
What
set
other
up tables.
organizations do you work with? in the
Well,
food
like
community?
at that time, for example, we collaborated some with the Arkansas Sustainability Network. They were in the Victory building at the time, and they started the local food pickup. That's the online farmers market.
Is that still going on?
It is. It's now the Arkansas Local Food Network. Instead of ASN, it's ALFN. But but they still do the local food pickup. And at the time, I think 2007, they had just something like 15 people who were shopping through the online farmers market, and they had one supplier. Now you go on there, it's like 30 or 40 farmers and over 100 people shopping there every week.
And what do you go on? What's the email address?
That's littlerock.locallygrown.net, and it's an online farmers market. You put your order in on, I think, by Wednesday, and then you pick your food up on Saturday.
Where do you pick it up?
At Christ Episcopal.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's still going on.
It is, yeah. They've been hosting that for eons now.
That is the coolest thing. I guess it's still successful.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, there's a lot of other things, a lot more farmers markets now than there were back then. So
Yeah.
I'm
Every
sure that kind of
neighborhood's
splits up
got
the market.
one.
But you're
it
right.
seems like every neighborhood's got one. So do you buy from a bunch of these guys for your Root Café?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I go to the Hillcrest Farmers Market on Kavanaugh.
Right.
I go there every Saturday.
Do you really?
Mm-hmm. The great thing about that is it's a year-round farmers market, so I can always kind of keep up with what lots of the different farmers have, what's coming into season, and so it, and then it also serves as a place where I can pick up from farmers who don't make regular deliveries. So I might arrange, for them to bring a couple of extra cases of something that we need, and then I'll go there and pick it up.
Or you could, because they're not from in town.
Right, most of them. Now there are a few that are urban farms, but the majority.
Yeah, Felder Farm is.
Right. There's Felder, there's Dunbar Gardens, there's Little Rock Urban Farming, Willow Springs Market Garden. They're not active anymore, but for the first 4 years we bought from them.
might contact Grady's farm. In their farmer named Grady or something.
Well, there's Hardin Farms down in Grady.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So you might, because he's far away, you might call him or email him and tell him to bring you extra stuff, and he'll bring it up here when he's coming to farmers market on the weekend. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Well, aren't you creative? That's a lot of work to go pick up your food, though. Most restaurants have their food delivered to the back door.
Well, so we have some farms that do deliver. They're generally bigger. For example, Arkansas Natural Produce down in Malvern, they're a really, really great greenhouse operation. They do year-round spring mix. The beautiful, really flavorful spring mix that you see in, like, the majority of restaurants in Little Rock. When you
I was
go out
wondering
to eat,
where that came from.
It's most of the time it's from Arkansas Natural Produce, and they have a year-round operation, and so we get several dozen pounds of spring mix from them each week because we put a little side salad with all our sandwiches.
Well, I'm skeptical to buy it sometimes because I'm thinking, where does that come from? And I wondered if it was hydroponics.
No, they're. They grow in soil, but they have a climate-controlled greenhouse, so they're able to.
Is there anybody doing hydroponics growing?
Not on a grand scale that we've come across. There have been a few that I've heard about, and they've tried and may have been successful, but we haven't bought from them. So
for our listeners that want to know what hydroponics is, it's where you grow indoors in a warehouse in water, I think, and you just put all the nutrients in the water, and so you can only grow things like lettuce, strawberry, kale. I mean, you can't grow any root vegetables in water, of course.
Right, yeah.
It's got to be stuff that grows above ground. And I know they're doing it where there's limited space in Asia. Like in China, they're doing it big time.
Right.
But I don't know of anybody in Little Rock, so I saw that sometimes. So that's interesting. So you've started your business down there. You've made your money. I know we kind of got off on farming, but back to your business, your core business. You've raised your money. Now you've got to pick out a location.
Right. Well, that was, one of the benefits of spending that 3 years was that we got to look at a lot of locations. And so...
I wish you'd have done it at Doc's.
Well, you would have had to put in a grease trap for us.
I know. There were some limitations.
Yeah.
Those grease traps are expensive, aren't they?
They are. There's a lot of infrastructure hurdles to opening a restaurant that make it really, really expensive on the front end. And that's why you very often see when a restaurant closes that another restaurant will open in the same location because they already have a lot of those things like a grease trap and a vent-a-hood that are required for running a restaurant.
And that's what you did.
Well, no, we...
you went to... wasn't your place an old drive-in or something?
It had been, but it was from so long ago that none of that stuff was still usable.
Oh.
So during that 3 years, we were doing the fundraisers. We did canning and food preservation workshops also. It was a lot of fun.
Down at Christchurch?
Yeah, we did those at Christchurch mostly. Also at the Universalist Church, we did a few of those. We did those events like I was talking about, the movie, dinner and a movie type stuff. We did catering, which was a lot of fun. We'd have people would get in touch with us who had met us at Earth Day or something like that, and they'd say, hey, can you cater a wedding or can you cater a party? So we would...
Where'd you cook it all? All down at Christchurch?
We would, we would cook it because that was a certified commercial kitchen, so we were able to use that kitchen, cook what we needed to cook, and then we would take a catering delivery somewhere.
It's like an incubator, small business incubator down there for restaurants. I wonder if they could still do that for anybody.
I don't know if they still do that, but I know that Trinity
did it for a little while. I don't
yeah,
think they're still
Kent
doing
Walker, he got his start in Trinity, and Loblolly also used that kitchen first. So
Ken Walker, the cheese.
Right, that's a great model because it gives people who are just kind of on the verge of manifesting this.
And both
vision.
of them were successful.
They were, yeah. They both have their own spaces now, and they're doing great stuff. So, so then we were connecting with people all the time through these different events that we were doing, and people knew that we were looking for a space. For a long time, we kind of had our sights set on 7th Street Tattoos. The space.
Oh, that'd have been by me. I'd have liked that down there.
That's right. It would have been really close. And we were talking to them. They were building that new space they were in, and they were looking to sublet the old space because they wanted to make sure that a new tattoo parlor didn't go in behind them and take all their business. So they were going to sublet to us, and for one reason or another, that didn't work out in the end. And then a friend of ours who was doing some construction for Anita Davis down in the South Main neighborhood, he got in touch and he said, "Hey, I know y'all are looking for a space. Anita is redoing this building that used to be the Sweden Cream, and you guys should come down and take a look at it." And, it was one of those things. I mean, we had looked at probably 20 different locations or maybe more. And when we pulled up there to look at the Sweden Cream, we just instantly knew that that was
it.
the place.
Well, it is. It absolutely
right,
is.
you
It's
know.
across from the corner store. It's next it's next to the Essie Museum.
Right. And we've got Boulevard right there, kind of catty
that's
corner.
Right. It's really opening up down there, that South on Main area.
Right. Yeah, there's great stuff going on. And, I think obviously Anita deserves a ton of credit for having that vision early on. And she was really just kind of a philanthropic developer. She brought businesses in that she thought would be good for the neighborhood and the community. And in a lot of cases would offer really great deals on rent for the first year to help them get going. And
Are you renting from her?
no, we actually eventually purchased the building from her. We wanted to do that expansion project that we've been working on. And
So you've moved in, you found it, you moved in. Did it have equipment in it?
no, we had actually been purchasing equipment here and there through that 3-year period, and just finding places to store stuff.
And then so you just started painting it and moving in. Have you
Yeah,
married
and-
Corey yet?
Well, once we found that space, we signed the lease in August to become effective on January 1st. And so by August there, we knew that we were going to be in that space. So we went on our honeymoon in October. We got married when we got back. And then
Isn't that backwards?
I don't know. We just figured we would
You do everything your own way.
we would get it done one way or another.
Yep.
And so then in January, we started working on the building. And, another incredible thing about the Anita Davis story is that, she really saw a food establishment as an important thing to the community there.
To South on Main.
She had helped Boulevard get their bakehouse
No, I
in
didn't know that.
space. She kind of she helped them some with finishing out the building, I think, and I don't know to what degree, but for us, she once we had signed the lease, she was still doing some of the finishing construction, and she said, "Let me know where you want outlets, where you want plumbing, where you want things like that." She had put in a grease trap so that it would be more attractive to a restaurant.
She is such a philanthropist.
It's incredible, yeah.
And she just moved up here like 10 years ago. Didn't she? From somewhere?
Boy, I don't know.
She's not
about
from
that.
Little Rock. I think she's from the country. And all of a sudden she just moves up here, picks South on Main as where she wants to, do her work, and just jumps in there. She built Bernice Garden.
That's right, yeah.
Which is just
I
lovely.
heard she came down
From heaven?
from the sky on a golden chariot.
Yeah, I think that might be right. I think that's probably actually where she came from. So you moved in. How many days did it take? How long did it take? And have you got your third partner?
Did
Is
you
your
say
third-
how many days?
Yes, or months. Do you still have your third partner? Or she...
Well, she was part of the partnership for most of the startup phase, but she decided to go in a different direction during the time between when we had signed the lease and when the lease became effective. So during the fall of 2010, right before we started actually working on the building.
Did you do it yourself?
The building stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the building itself was finished out, and so we started doing the decorating and started moving the equipment in that that we had already bought, and we started finding furniture. And
Did y'all have another job you were working while this was going on?
we did for most of the time, yeah.
I saw you where you worked at Audubon or somewhere.
Well, I was at Audubon, Arkansas for a little while as an intern. I worked at Boulevard Bread Company for 2 years, and then I also worked at a place called Milford Track out in West Little Rock.
What's that?
Oh, it's this neat little place. It's in the bottom of the Westlake office buildings.
A restaurant?
Yeah,
You do have some restaurant experience.
Oh, yeah. So I, a few places, and Boulevard specifically, because they were, really doing amazing work that was, I felt like kind of ahead of the curve for what was going on in the food industry at that time. They were doing a lot of local purchasing, and they still are.
Yeah.
But at that time, they were
They were really progressive.
Really
There was nothing
pioneers.
like them. There was nothing like them.
Right. And so that experience was great. Milford Track, they make their own homemade pasta, and they do some really cool stuff out there. Yeah, you should go check it out. It's such a neat place. And so, worked at a few places like that, but then once we got to the nitty-gritty, like in May or something like that, I think I quit my job there, and then we just worked on the Root full-time. And, it's funny. We were in it every day, I mean, I remember we were even sleeping down there once in a while, just like we'd work all day trying to, get stuff painted or build shelves or whatever we were doing. And we would just sleep on the floor when we got done, wake up the next morning and start back to it.
Oh, sounds wonderful to me. That sounds really wonderful, like a labor of love, a passion. I mean...
Yeah, but then eventually Scott McGee, he's kind of a mentor in a lot of ways, and he came and took a look at the space, and he was going to give us some recommendations, or just kind of give us his feedback on everything. And he walked in, and at that point we had tables and chairs, and we had a stove and an oven and an espresso machine and stuff like that. And we felt like there were all these things that we had to get perfect before we opened. And he walked in and he was like, "This looks great. Y'all are ready to open. Y'all should open next week." And we were like, "Whoa!" And I realized that there was a point where we really had to just bite the bullet and open. My friend Doug just texted me a question.
Come on, Doug.
All right, Doug Pierce. Doug often comes and helps us with events that we do at the Root Café, the beard growing contest and the hot pepper eating contest.
That's what we need to talk about next, the pie contest.
Oh, the pie bake-off, yeah. So Doug texted, are you going to restart your rooftop garden and rainwater collection with the new expansion?
That's a good question,
That is a
Doug.
good question. So,
are you collecting rainwater?
Well, we had a rain barrel for a while, and it was right where that second bathroom eventually went, out on the patio.
You're not serving that water up to us, are you?
No way.
Washing your dishes
We
in
use it. We use it to water the courtyard.
Right.
It's the funny thing about a rain barrel, though, is that when it's raining and it can fill up a rain barrel, you don't need to water as much.
Oh,
and
that's
then
a good point.
So it's. I mean, we're learning to use it when we can, and it helps save a little bit.
But a rain barrel's good. We have one, and we use it because we want to not make a big trench down the side of the house.
Right. I mean, it's a great way to stop
erosion. It's a great.
And I'm just kidding. I say that tongue in cheek. It collects a ton of water. I think it's a 50-gallon barrel, and it'll fill up from one rainstorm.
So, do you have a garden on your roof?
Well, it was actually just a green roof that Anita had put on before we even signed the lease. That was something that she decided would be an attractive thing for the neighborhood, so she put that on top of the building.
She's something else.
She's something else, yeah. And so we maintain it, and it does well, but it's not edible plants. It's actually just some
flowers.
It's drought-tolerant succulents that do really well with, in the Arkansas summer when they're up there. Mm-hmm.
We've got to talk about your Food Network. You've had some great publicity. You had the traditional pie bake-off, and you had the Food Network. Simon, how do you say his last name? Majumdar?
Majumdar.
Oh, yeah. Majumdar at the Root Café in April to judge your traditional pie bake-off. That was in 2015, though.
That's right. Yeah, back in April, I think.
Mm-hmm. How'd you get him?
He was doing a kind of non-traditional book tour. I think it was called Red, White, and Chew, or Fed, White, and Blue. It was some play on Red, White, and Blue, and it was his story of, he wasn't born in the U.S., so his story of kind of learning about American culture through the traditional food of the U.S. And so on his book tour, he was doing a real non-traditional book tour where he just reached out through social media to different towns that he was interested in stopping, and he would ask people to come up with an event of any size. It could be like a potluck or, some kind of a speaking engagement. And so when he was looking at coming to Little Rock, someone got in touch with us and said, "Hey, what would y'all be interested in doing if we could get him to come to Little Rock?" And
you said a pie cook-off.
So we thought, it'd be fun to have him be a guest judge for a traditional pie bake-off.
You do a lot of contests. You do a beard contest, pie contest.
Yeah, my wife tells me I'm too competitive.
I don't know. I don't know. I like it.
I think they're fun.
They're very fun. What's another one you do?
We do the beard contest. You
did chili, cheese dip?
No, we don't do
any of those.
No,
everybody's doing those.
Right, we do a community potluck usually in the summer. We when we celebrate our anniversary in June.
What's a community potluck?
We just we'll have a party and we'll do like a band will come play, and we'll do a main course, like some barbecue or something like that, and then we'll ask people to bring side dishes. And
you are really living up to your name.
It's free.
Community.
I mean, it's not
free.
Right. Yeah, we just tell people to come and have a.
Are you exhausted all the time?
Well, I can always use a good night's sleep, but we're having a lot of fun too. So
You're so
keeps
creative.
me going. Well, it's funny you say that. I feel a lot of times like I'm always on the hunt for new ideas. And
So I think that's what entrepreneurs do. They're always on the hunt for new ideas. I think you are the epitome of what an entrepreneur does.
wow, well, that's so nice of you to say that. Thank you, Kerry.
You're welcome. You had a passion. You saw a niche. You saw an opportunity. You thought about it, obsessed about it, as I know you probably did, because that's what a real entrepreneur does. And you obsessed about it. Then you started moving towards the target in a really creative way. And then you felt the moment when you went in there, you had an epiphany, or you had a moment, an aha moment where you say, this is the place, a kind of a God moment. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs tell me, oh, I just had a God moment. I just knew right then this was it. You had that. And then you just put one foot in front of the other every day as you continue to come up with creative ideas.
It's, a lot of it, honestly, is luck and being in the right place at the right time.
I don't believe that.
Well, I do. I remember
You
I
make
went to
your luck. You've been making your luck.
Well, I'm not sure, but I went to a small business class at, the
Small Business Development Center.
Center.
I love them.
UALR.
They're coming on in 3 weeks.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I went to a business class there, and it had all these great quotes and stuff, but I remember one of them that said that the majority percentage of entrepreneurs, when they were asked, like, what was the most important attribute, or what was the most important thing about their success in opening a business, more than any other thing, they said good luck. That was it.
Because they're humble.
Well, maybe it is. I don't know, but I've just kind of felt like, the fact that we happen to know this guy Justin, who said, hey, you should get in touch with Anita, and we went down there. It's just like, gosh, it just fell into place. Like,
But if you'd been laying on your couch, it'd have never fallen into place.
well,
So you
maybe
kind of make your luck.
the potato chips might have fallen into place. I don't know.
Yeah. You kind of make your luck. I do agree. There's a lot of luck. And, some could say God moments, but you do have to get up off the couch and every day put your foot in front of each other and not exactly know where you're going, but be brave enough to keep going forward. So then, there's the one I want to do, because I've never gotten this. You got a grant. And that's how you've done your expansion, I think.
That's right, yeah.
So that's not luck. Who
Well,
wrote the grant?
Well, I did write the grant, but I mean,
okay.
just think about all the different applications that were out there. I consider that one of the luckiest
Well, if you
things.
hadn't have gotten that one, you'd have kept going till you got one.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Another I consider lucky thing, the summer before that happened, we got an email from a group called MBAs Across America. And
What are they called?
MBAs Across
Oh,
America.
okay.
And they're a nonprofit that sends groups of MBA candidates between their first and second year. Instead of doing an internship, they'll do a 6-week road trip, and 4 students will get in a car together, and they'll travel to 6 different towns in the U.S. and work with a business in each town and do like a week of business consulting with them. And so they got in touch with us, and they said, we're doing this program. Do you want to be part of it? And we said, sure. And so we had these 4 students show up and worked with us for a week. And
Who taught who?
Oh, man. They taught us a lot. They said that we taught them some stuff, but I don't
bet
know if
you
that's
did.
true. So MBAs Across America, they come on this road trip. They worked with us for a week, and they interviewed our customers. They helped us with social media ideas. They looked at inventory things, stuff like that. And at the end of the week, they put together this kind of list of recommendations. And the first one was, you guys should open for dinner. Your customers have mentioned that several times, and in looking at demographic data for downtown Little Rock, there just weren't at that time a lot of casual, family-friendly dinner options. And along with that, we ended up being part of this TV show called Growing America, and it was following the MBAs as they went across the U.S., and it was put on by Holiday Inn, I think. And so it was kind of an uplifting documentary about this MBA program, and we ended up being part of that. To make it more exciting, they created this voting component on the show where viewers could vote for the business they considered to be the most inspirational, and we happened to win that. And we didn't know at the time, but the prize from that was $25,000. That guy Ty Pennington, the one that does
I know that name.
Extreme Home Makeover, I think. Like he sends you to Disney World and bulldozes your house while you're gone. Mm-hmm. He was the narrator for the show, and so before the last episode, he showed up with a check for $25,000, and they were like, "You guys won the most inspirational business. Here you go." And so that was the kind of finale for the whole series.
Headline News announced the Root Café as the winner of the $25,000 grant selected for Growing America.
Yeah, the name of the show is Growing America, A Journey to Success. And you can see it. I don't know if it's still on HLN's website, but if you go to the Roots YouTube channel, you can see it on. We have the whole thing. It was about 2 hours without commercials, and it was a 6-part miniseries. And they had businesses from Little Rock, Denver, and Detroit, I think. And so it was a really neat show. It talked about how the MBA students worked with the different business owners. And so after that, that was fall of 2014. And then that next year, during that fall, we put in the grant application with Chase Bank for Mission Main Street. And we found out a little bit after that we received that larger grant for $150,000. And that was to do that expansion that the MBAs had recommended, the dinner expansion.
So when they gave you the $25,000, was it allocated only for expansion, or could you use it for anything you wanted to?
Well, they said we could use it for anything we wanted to, but we wanted to put it towards that expansion.
And then getting that grant gave you the inspiration or the national recognition to get the $150,000 grant?
No.
Or did they parlay into one to the other?
No, they were completely unrelated, actually. It was obviously very coincidental, but no, it didn't have anything to do with each other. We just, I had applied for that grant, actually, I think, before we even found out that we were receiving prize money from the TV show.
So you wrote both of your grants?
Well, the first wasn't a grant. It was just it was prize money from that show. So it was just completely random. But the Mission Main Street grant, that was a true grant with a grant application, and we had to describe in that what we would use the money for if we received it.
When I go and look at grants for the Dreamland Ballroom, I can't ever pick out which one I should apply for. How did you? Because you could apply for a lot of different ones. Was there a specific something that triggered it to you that said, this is the one I need to apply for? Because you could spend all day applying for them.
Well, you could now. I mean, I don't think there are that many for businesses, for-profit businesses, so this was a pretty unique opportunity. Mission Main Street grants are specifically for businesses. You have to be a business that has a sort of a social community building mission. They were looking for things like local sourcing or, like hiring minority employees, just, lots of ways that businesses were giving back to the community. You had to have been in business for at least 2 years. And there were a few other requirements, but when I read it, I thought, gosh, that really fits with what we do. And so,
did you read through a bunch of them?
No, that was the only one I knew about, so I put in an application. And
so you expanded with containers, I read.
That's right, shipping containers.
I know. I think that's so cool.
It's fun, yeah.
You just pick them up and move them.
Well, they're welded to the ground now, so you can't anymore. But if there's a tornado, the Root Café is the place to be.
Come over there and get in your shelters.
That's right, yeah.
I want to thank Jack Sundell, owner and founder of the Root Café, and for birthing a restaurant with the mission of building a community through support of local foods. That's just a beautiful concept.
And I do just want to mention that co-owner and co-founder, because my wife, Corey, has been involved every step of the way.
That's right. We didn't talk about nepotism because it is a family-owned business. And for birthing a business, you get this cigar.
Oh,
and I brought one for Corey, too.
Is it from Cuba?
No, it's not.
What?
But it's made with Cuban seeds.
Okay, well, thank you. It says Romeo and Juliet on it.
And that's romantic.
Beautiful.
Share it with your wife.
All right.
It came from the Humidor Room at Colonial Wine and Spirits on Markham Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. To our listeners, if you've got a great entrepreneurial story you would like to share, I would love to hear from you. Send a brief bio and your contact info to questions@upyourbusiness.org, and someone will be in touch. And finally, I want to thank all of you for spending time with me and my guest, Jack Sundell. If you think this program has been about you, you're right, but it's also been about me. Thank you for letting me fulfill my destiny
My hope today is that you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that it, whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next Friday at 2 p.m. on KABF Radio in Little Rock, Arkansas. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. To hear today's program again, or if you want someone else to benefit from what you heard, jot this down. A podcast will be available within 48 hours at upyourbusiness.org or at flagandbanner.com. Again, that's upyourbusiness.org. Click on the tab labeled Podcast. There you'll find today's segment with links and resources you heard discussed on today's program. Kerry's goal, to help you live the American dream.